Greetings and blessed love, everybody. This is Raising Excellence, and we will start to spend 90 of the most valuable minutes of your day together. Thank you very much for making it. We have today my beautiful co-hosts, Willow, our trauma consultant, with me. You're muted, Willow.
I was muted and the mute button was hidden, so I was like, where is it? Why is it not showing up? But
There
hi
you are.
everyone, I'm glad I found my unmute.
Also with us, our psychosomatic illuminator, Agnieszka.
I illuminated it. Hi, nice to be here.
And Mike, straight from Mexico, our opportunity ambassador. Hi, Mike.
Hello, everybody. I'm really looking forward to today's show. So let's get this thing rolling.
Yes, man. And as you can see, today with us, a new face, our special guest, Darrell Becker. And the show today is dubbed Holistic Health Shortcuts with Darrell Becker. Welcome, Darrell. Thank you so much for making it to Raising Excellence for today.
Hey, it's great to join you guys.
Nice one. So jumping straight into it, holistic health. We started discussing this topic last week, and I thought we had a really interesting show. You know, defining it, bringing in different perspectives, looking at health from a holistic, holistic perspective, really. And it's a subject very dear to my heart, as everyone I work with, and the people around me. I try to look at them continuously as holistic beings. So, defining us not only like as the physical flesh and blood that we are as well, but also looking at us as, spiritual beings, as intellectual beings, and even, looking at us from an emotional point of view as well. So, we're made up of many different levels of being that makes us whole. And so I'm really excited to get to know you a little better, and also to find out about your experience and your background. I know you're into acupuncture, but you're also into a bunch of different things. So how would you best introduce yourself?
I started learning holistic healthcare and acupuncture by being a chiropractic assistant back in 1998. And that's where my training began. Just the traditional method called apprenticeship, where I worked directly with a chiropractor who taught me acupuncture. He taught me many methods of very effective and not too well-known diagnostic and treatment modalities. They mostly are taught to chiropractors, applied in clinical kinesiology specifically. And I did go to two acupuncture colleges to go ahead and get my license of acupuncture. That's the piece of paper that gives me a permission slip to do all kinds of interesting things. But I've spent a lot of time learning a lot of different methods. I prefer contractor for the body. I prefer something more wide scope of how I work for people. And I think most people are aware of a few things about what they think holistic medicine means. Too many people, they use the term homeopathic in place of holistic. Completely different meaning, completely different word. Holistic means of or pertaining to the whole, So, like when you think of a car, steering wheel is attached to the car. Things that affect the steering wheel don't generally affect the transmission or the exhaust system. The human body is completely the opposite. Like anything that's affecting one area is affecting other areas, whether you know about it or not. That doesn't matter. That your ignorance doesn't count in the case of healthcare. Actually, things have complete interrelationship. So yeah, I've been doing that for a long time, and my mental and emotional skill sets is what brought me to a lot of people's attention on the internet. People would know me for advocating critical thinking and emotional balancing skills for the last 10 years. So
was there any marking moment that really brought you to that journey, or could you pinpoint something that happened, or some kind of shift that happened within you that really set you up on that track, so to say?
To set me up on the track for needing to know more about healthcare was having health problems as a 20-year-old, and eventually when I was, shoots like 20. Yeah, I guess I was 20, and that's when I found the guy who would eventually hire me as his assistant, where I started my apprenticeship process, where I started actually learning in the office with person after person, client after client, and learning like that. So it was not knowing how to manage my own health problems, being very disappointed in what medical doctors, known as MDs in the United States, were delivering in terms of they were in no way serving my endpoint interests of being healthier and making my symptoms permanently go away. They were dispensing medicine and pretty crappy diagnostic tests, by the way. So that's what drove me to that way. About 10 years ago, well, yeah, it was around there. Actually, it was 12 years ago when I moved to this island. Suddenly, like getting high-speed internet, and I had access to things such as Richard Grove, who at the time had the Peace Revolution podcast, and I learned about critical thinking, and I then put a lot of energy in that direction. I learned about nonviolent communication and other methods of emotional balancing skill sets just a couple of years after that. So I incorporate those components into it a lot. I think that they're very important things to have a method to do anything. So I have methods for the healthcare that I just did. I had an acupuncture client here just moments ago. I have methods to think critically. I have methods to balance the emotional landscape of myself and to help others do the same. And I pose that question to people. You know, I think if you have a method, then you can do it. If you don't have a method and you're winging it, you know, there's my question. Are you a critical thinker? If so, what's your method? And if you don't have a ready answer with steps, I'm not so sure, you know?
So if you would put yourself, into the shoes of someone, you know, just like you, when you said like in your 20s and you had those health issues, and you know, what I'm figuring out is that you were in a place where you could feel and you could see that, you know, there's more than what the MDs, what the general, you know, normal society, medical industry has to offer to you. So you had a feeling that there was more to that, and I'm hearing that that's what really triggered you, you know, to step into, you know, to be on the track that you are right now on your journey. And I can, well, from my subjective perspective, of course, I see a lot of people kind of, you know, waking up to that and kind of, you know, smelling that, oh, you know, there's more to that. And then as you mentioned as well, with the Internet of Things and with all this, you know, overload of knowledge that is available to us right now, if you don't have methods, strategies, and trustful resources or people around you already set up, then it's also easy, you know, to get lost and to get caught in the net, and you know, to be overwhelmed with information overload and to not know where to turn. And if you would put yourself into the shoes of someone who is just at the beginning, you know, and is kind of like figuring out, oh, you know, there's something more, but doesn't really know where to look and how to go about, you know, finding out what kind of alternatives are there, what would be your method or your guideline for someone, you know, to find his way, you know, to kind of push forward and opening the path a little more?
I think it's important to know that there are a lot of answers out there for any health problem, period. And if the words ever came out of your mouth, I've tried everything, I think it's time to take a really good hard look at the fact that you have not tried everything. And you certainly don't know everything. I haven't tried everything, and I probably have tried a lot more than what the average lay person or someone who's not in any way professional with healthcare has looked into. So step one is understand that there's lots of options, and there's options you've never heard of, or if you've heard of it, you might have dismissed it as not being effective or serious. So step one is knowing that there's lots of options. And step two would be to then understand that as a beginner, you want to find someone who's proficient. You know, if you have a serious health problem, you want to find someone who's proficient. In fact, you'd want to build an actual healthcare team, of which the MD doctor is one of them, the one that you want to keep in check, the one that you want to keep out of the way most of the time and keep from poisoning or killing you, because that's what they're trained to do. In the United States, there's more than 250,000 plus people per year die at the hands of the MD's sanctioned interventions, both diagnostic and treatment wise, minimum. period, every single year. That's how many Americans are dying from, and that's not malpractice. That's them following the rules. That's them following what they were taught to do. So step one is to acknowledge that that's dangerous, which is why a lot of folks don't go to a doctor because they might intuitively know that, or they have actually studied and they've seen the evidence that that happens. I think it's important to know that there's a lot of options. I think it's important to know that there's a lot of professionals out there that can help you. And then it would come down to educating yourself, which is really important. So I offer a website for helping people and directly consulting with me, not medicaladvice.co, and connect with me. And I'm certainly willing to give you a free 30 minutes plus, potentially directing you in the right direction. But I think everyone's different. Step two is understanding there is no one size fits all method. This is not about an oil change. Oil changes, by the way, would be a great analogy. The oil filter for my car over there, it's not going to fit any of your cars unless you all drive a 2001 Honda CR-V. And you probably don't. So therefore, there is no one size fits all thing. So if you think, what's the solution? Take that out of your head right now and add, what are the solutions to the multiple causes of my problems? And which are the big ones to address first? And how do I measure those things? So you're thinking it's moving out of monopoly thinking to plurality thinking. Monopoly thinking is, I've got the one problem. Where's the one cause? Plurality thinking. Actually, there are multiple problems requiring multiple solution aspects to them.
In other words, what I'm hearing is that in order to really open up that path and to go into it, the first step, the foundational thing to do is to step into self-responsibility, to be responsible for yourself and to step into that power, not to give it away to somebody else, to some institution or to other people who might, even benefit or want to tell you that, you depend on me, you depend on my white coat or my, nice paper on the wall, and I know all the solutions. But really and truly, the solution to your individual and very specific problems can only be resolved in the end by you or through you. So you have to take that power into your own hands and know that you are responsible yourself, responsible, that you're able to respond to the individual needs of your whole being, so to say.
That's a good way of putting it. Does anyone else here have experience with holistic healthcare? Like practical experience, like you have hired someone or you have spent time training as that?
Yeah, I'm a holistic health practitioner, and so is Willow, and so is Dennis, and so is Tim.
I've never actually called myself a holistic health, but I guess by the definition, that's what I try to practice.
Yeah.
But I do it more emotionally, so I never even thought to call myself that.
Well,
cool. I'd love to hear, each of your journeys then, or even like a summary of anything.
For sure. But first of all, I have to address a small technical issue that we're experiencing with the show. Magically, and through no fault of my own, because I have rebooted my computer before the show, our title is still the Monday title as opposed to the Wednesday title. So we will have to rename the show afterwards. But today we're Darrell Becker and Holistic Health Shortcuts. That is written right here in front of me on my screen, but apparently did not translate to any of the places where we broadcast. So we will be renaming the shows afterwards.
We are definitely not talking about babies tonight.
Definitely not. Although Darrell was a baby at one point.
True.
So there's that. And so were you.
We're all that.
So we're all, yes.
That's an assumption.
Why, are you a clone? That's why you had health problems at 20. Because you emerged. You emerged and you were like, oh my God, this atmosphere, this is terrible. No, I'm joking. But I am a psychosomatic therapist. So that's the psychosomatic therapy from Australia. They have a psychosomatic college now. It's actually taught in universities, in some universities in Australia, I believe, or colleges or something like that. So it's a very fascinating, and that's where I do the face readings and body mind analysis and massage and all of that. That all stems from psychosomatic therapy. I've done some other modalities, but that's the main one. And yes, of course, everybody has a health journey, I'm sure. But yeah, what about you, Willow? Tell us about your therapy. Tell Darrell about your therapy.
Well, I actually wanted to touch on another topic that I related to. The having to visit doctors obsessively before the age of 20. I relate to that so much. And the despair when you leave the doctor's office and they've told you yet again, I don't know, man. I don't know what you have. I don't know what your issue is. Maybe it's just like, maybe you just don't have motivation. Maybe you're just not trying hard enough. That kind of stuff, you know. I have narcolepsy, so I'm tired all the time. So I get the laziness. I get the, you know, you're just not trying hard enough quite a bit. That was a big one that doctors tried to push. But they always got it wrong. I actually wasn't diagnosed properly until I was 23. My biological father had it for like he's had it for much longer, but he had been diagnosed for 5 years before they thought to tell him that it couldn't be genetic, and that may explain a lot of my issues. I've had this since I was 7. So I've had like weird dream states, a bunch of behavioral issues as a child, a bunch of medical issues as a child. Nothing that warranted like any major surgery, but I was in and out of the doctors all the time. And that didn't stop until about maybe 2 years ago, to be honest, when I stopped taking my Xanax. I stopped taking Xanax last year, but stopped taking my Adderall, stopped taking ibuprofen, stopped taking aspirin after I overdosed on it. I just stopped doing a bunch of things. They stopped working for me, and I focused on my symptoms. I went back to the root of the problem. I was like, all right, I don't even know what this really is. I know it's narcolepsy, but I don't really know where it came from. I just have to focus on my symptoms. And when I started doing that, it unleashed Pandora's box, because my symptoms were very closely tied into trauma, which is how I got into trauma consulting, because I realized that a lot of these illnesses, in my opinion, are caused by like somatic ideas, unresolved trauma and energy that's been redirected into the wrong part of the body. It kind of like ties all this like spiritual woo-woo-y stuff that people like to talk about with like actual science and how the body works. And then I found IFS, which is the emotional side of it. And it is a holistic view of your psyche. Basically, your psyche is your dark shadow self and all the parts that make up your dark shadow self, and your good protective parts, which I guess would be your light self. I don't know. People don't often refer to that side of themselves as a name. And then you have a part called self, which is the core, the center, and the leader of all of this. It's supposed to be the ambassador between you and the outside world. But yeah, the idea of thinking of your system, your whole body, and the environment you live in as a ecosystem, as a whole big thing.
Yeah. So Don Clark, one of the listeners, says that Wilhelm Reich talked about this a lot with the armoring and the bions and stuff. And we do study armoring as well in psychosomatic therapy.
That's a fantastic topic, like especially like early childhood and pre-birth, or like the very first moments of life, and how they how armoring is something that happens even in those moments, or even before the child is actually coming forward to this reality. It's super interesting. Like I dived into that topic a few years back, and yeah, it's super interesting. And I just recommended it the other day to our neighbors of us who is about to give birth to a baby, and I found it highly interesting. And I'm not like, I know there's a university professor here in Germany who has a series of lectures, like 6-7 hours long, just on Wilhelm Reich and just on the armoring. But I'm not sure if that's helpful to our English-speaking audience. But maybe one of you guys knows a resource on Wilhelm Reich and armoring, especially in early childhood. Would you be familiar with that, Darrell?
I am. I got introduced to Wilhelm Reich's work during my apprenticeship when I was starting to work and learn holistic healthcare from the chiropractor. And I did get to see a therapist who was, I would say, like minorly familiar with, vegetotherapy, but did not practice it more than one time in terms of like the physical hands-on part of it. And I'm also familiar with the work of Dr. James DeMeo, who is famous for his studies of Wilhelm Reich's work. He's built cloudbusters, orgone accumulators. So I'm kind of familiar with Reich's work to some great degree, like
Nice.
at least like, from in a broad spectrum kind of way. I haven't done my own actual work to, to not to mention like receive or be trained in something like vegetotherapy from Reich. But I'm super curious, and I'd love to have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. So
the name, was it James DeMiro?
James DeMeo, D-E,
DeMeo.
like last name M-E-O. And yeah,
So
he's been on a lot of podcasts, as he's well known for being pretty close to everything Wilhelm Reich, especially when it comes to the orgone sciences.
Nice. So Don says he's got a baby coming in November, and so this is perfect information for him. Michael, how do you heal the world with your presence?
Well, that's an interesting question, Agnieszka. I would say I'm kind of on the line with a lot of what Willow and Agnieszka. I feel like, for me, it's always been, I've hated hospitals. I really disliked doctors. My mother was a nurse. She worked for an oral surgeon, and didn't think or didn't appreciate vaccines. And so throughout my younger years as a child, I was always harassed by the school administrators when it came to, I didn't have my records in order, and they'd send me home with lists of things to do and why I couldn't participate in things and all that kind of stuff. And we always have to go through these battles. But, I was in the military and then in the construction industry. And to a large part, a lot of people are just ignorant to a lot of different things. And for me, I think it's really just about self-empowerment. Every time that I've kind of trusted a doctor to come up with something, whether it be a pill or like my tooth, getting a root canal or something like that, it's always backfired, and I've had to deal with it for years. And so, I just don't like it. And then my ex-girlfriend, she had a situation in which she had to get on medication, and I kind of went through that whole process of watching them like medicate the heck out of her, until the point that I just said, we've got to go a different direction. And so we were able to recover her, but it took quite a while, and that was quite an experience for me that really kind of led me to the path of understanding psychology and this whole area of trauma and so forth. I think what Willow pointed me to is the book The Body Keeps the Score, and for me that made so much sense.
Hey Darrell, what does your shirt say? Sorry,
It says,
I'm just curious.
keep calm and start thinking.
Ah, cool.
Something I got from one of my trips to see Richard Grove.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's good medical advice right there.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of people who say that I think they've taken in the affirmation, I'm too in my head, I need to get into my heart, that kind of thing. I think what I try to explain is, no, you need both. I think probably you're inefficiently in your head. And like revving the engine while you're parked inefficiently in your head. It needs to, you engage the gears and go somewhere, and you park and you turn, and everything revs down. It's a process. Thinking is a process. If you don't have a method, then it's like trying to build a house without a method. It's a mess, you know, or to fix
Bringing them
car without a
together.
method. It's a mess,
Well,
you know.
I'd like to also point out that some people do have methods that they're not even willing to acknowledge. So it's even harder when you're like, oh, I don't have a method, but it's like, okay, you do have a method that you're not thinking about, that you go on instinct. Trying to retrain that into a calm and thinking method is it's even harder than just trying to like, I'm gonna build a routine, I'm gonna do this and make it my method.
Yeah,
And
that's an
be-
aspect. Sorry for a second. That I was just going to go into that because you mentioned there, you mentioned the heart and the mind and the head, and then I would want to add, and I think that's what Willow just did, the gut to it. So if you bring those three together, the gut, the heart, and the mind, I think they're in place. They're already in place physically, and they're there to really be put to be aligned, together. Each one has its proper place and its proper functionality. But if we are able to put them together and to put them in harmony, so to say, so they can work together, I think that's when we get into harmony, into resonance.
Harmony is a good plan, and effectiveness is good, and that's why I mentioned methods. So, interfamily systems therapy is a method. I'm happy to be part of what's known as the Mankind Project, which is an international group of guys who often will work in small groups and sometimes in larger trainings to, I would say, present opportunities for emotional balancing and dealing with the internal dialogue going on and finding a direction, preferably like an action and vision-based mission for each person, like each person finding their own, like a directive, the ethics that would guide their, like where they're going in their life. And one of the methods used is that thing called, IFS, where similar to actually finding the voices and giving them a bit more airtime, like what you guys are giving to me right now. I like collecting lots and lots of methods. So that's an emotional balancing skill I find is that one is IFS. Nonviolent communication, another emotional balancing skill set. I get to teach that occasionally. I have a weekly student like for that all the time, but I definitely, some other people occasionally engage me for that kind of stuff. The trivium method of critical thinking, I get paid for that one too, to deliver how to do that. I think for the listeners and viewers out there, I think it's a really great idea to say, well, maybe you're not clear on what your methodology is for critical thinking or emotional balancing, or I would say more appropriately tapping into your gut instinct. So find some methods and compare them. I just named several methods. And then test them out, make it empirical, So I haven't found something to replace the trivium method of critical thinking yet as what I would say is default number one best method for critical thinking 3-step that I could possibly find so far. But I'm still on the hunt and I still compare other methodologies. It certainly beats just appealing to various logical fallacies. So... from my perspective.
We should go back to doing that. We used to have logical fallacies every Thursday, but then we canceled the Thursday show and the logical fallacies went with that. But that was fun. We should go back to doing the logical fallacy of the week.
Yeah. There's actually a website called don'tfallacy.me, Don't Fallacy Me Bro, and you get to go through a bit of a quiz that, a fallacy will pop up, and then you get about 6 different answers where you could name that fallacy. And it's based on Labossier's 42 Fallacies PDF that's out there on the internet. I think that's a great step 2 of the trivium, is to learn some of many logical fallacies. And then, identify it so before it comes out of your mouth or out of your keyboard, and when it's coming at you to your ears or eyes. I think it's great to have that skill.
That's awesome. Yes, absolutely. So we're supposed to be talking about holistic health shortcuts. I was wondering if you have a shortcut. Like, what's your number one shortcut?
It just seems so ridiculous because, like what I mentioned, everyone has their own individual problems. So without actually isolating even a problem, what's the shortcut? That just seems so ridiculous. Like, it'd be like to say, oh, financial shortcuts. Darrell, what's your financial shortcut? I'd be like, I don't know, freaking buy Bitcoin. Like,
oh, there you go. There you go. That's one.
But
what's your go-to? What's your go-to remedy? What's your go-to solution? Like, what's the thing you reach for the most?
It's not a single thing that I reach for everyone. I can only say what I would reach for myself,
which is
for my own problems specifically. And that would be like as if you had my own mental, intellectual, and physical health problems, right?
So the shortcut is
didn't
not
I just go back over this? Wait, didn't I just mention that in the beginning? How one size fits all and one thing just is really ridiculous. Could we just dump the monopoly thinking, please? Could we go to plurality thinking?
Well, we can, what about garlic and lavender? Those are pretty ubiquitous.
Well, I was actually going to suggest something. I was going to suggest something along the same lines, except for it's a little bit more generic, not even as specific as, specific herbs and stuff. I go with 5 minutes of outside barefoot time a day.
Ah.
At the very least, it's doing something good for you.
Yeah. So go for a walk in the sun. There we go. And
barefoot. Go stand out in the sun. Yeah. Find a patch of sun, barefoot, stand there for 5 minutes.
Absolutely. That sounds pretty awesome. And yeah, I mean, I think getting time by the ocean. I live 500 feet from the ocean. So I have that as an accessible.
Where do you live? Oh, you live in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, east side of the big island called Hawaii, the one with volcanoes, the one that is big enough to fit all the other islands on it if you were able to pick them up and drop them over onto this island. Not Oahu.
I read an interesting book about Hawaii a long time ago, but I've never been. So
highly recommend it. Yeah.
Nice.
Although, thanks to the many efforts of the ruling class right now, travel is really, really challenging for people right now. So when I started wanting to be part of the show, my topics I brought over was biosecurity and medical freedom. But I'm glad that you changed it to holistic healthcare shortcuts. Because I do love talking about solutions, and I could easily come up with specific solutions for specific people and problems. I love doing it that way. I really kind of prefer it, I do love lavender oil, especially for burns. I do love garlic for many situations, but it's kind of like I've also tested a lot of people who
have you tried lavender oil for bruises? It's amazing for bruises. Most people don't use it on bruises.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's
See,
cool.
There you go. It's a shortcut.
I could have used that when I was on so many different medications because I would bruise so easily to the point where, like, my stepdad actually came home for a visit and he pulled me aside and he was like, "Your husband's not beating you, is he? I'll kill him." And I was like, "No, Dad, no. My medication makes me bruise. Like, you could poke me and I'm going to get a bruise. It's fine." That would have been really handy.
Yeah, here's a shortcut. If you bruise easily, you've got a profound medical condition, and it's time to go to a real healthcare provider, someone who's experienced to actually technologically diagnose what's going on, called in Oriental medicine, they'd call that spleen damage, or Tai yin deficiency, if you want to be more precise about that. And then the appropriate Chinese herbal formula and acupuncture points would be chosen to help boost you up. And the other things where you're deficient, the nutritional deficiencies would be applied. See right there, you got a specific problem for a specific person, and then specific solutions that can easily be figured, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the way I love looking at it. Like, please, let's get precise and specific is how I really implore people to go for.
So what, like, if you're talking to people individually? Sorry,
I think Mike wanted to say something.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Go on, Mike. Go, Mike.
Go, Mike.
Mike's turn.
Well, I was going to say, I think a lot of people, they sometimes are kind of okay with some of the alternative ideas, but as soon as they go into the doctor and somebody with a white coat says, "Oh, you've got this, you've got cancer, we've got to get we've got to hit this thing hard. We got to do this. And they just don't have the courage to stand up to the doctor. They just immediately melt and essentially submit to whatever a guy with a white coat says. What would you say to somebody to like give them some fortitude to build up their courage to say, you know, maybe I need a second opinion even?
I think it's time for those who have the courage to step up and do your own research that looks wider, like wider spectrums of where the sources are and deeper. You're looking deeper like that. If you have that fortitude and courage to do so, that's awesome. And now it's time to do that, and that will take you out of the simple trust in someone who's got authority, or the simple clinging to a fear like a diagnosis of cancer, which, you know, I look at as not nearly like the worst thing that I get to help work on. The worst things that I get to work on are neurological damages that are profound and have an impact of greater than 30 years. They are the most challenging things to fix. They often have heavy metal impact, which is like what often causes neurological conditions. And ironically, here's your connection to cancer. Then it would be many of the things that are given to cancer clients, such as chemotherapy, are neurotoxins to create more of those problems, if not out and out cause more tumors and kill you. So it is definitely a leap of courage to understand that A, you can research things. You have that power. That would be a hopeful moment. B, you can find the people who've had whatever you've had, and they survived it and they did better at it with holistic healthcare solutions, not homeopathic healthcare solutions. Please use the word holistic.
Hey, you know what? Yeah. I've had some really good results with homeopathic stuff lately.
I love using homeopathy, but for the purposes of something dire, and we're beginning to research it. I'm wishing for them to go deeper and further than just. So yes, in amidst that wider and deeper research that I was mentioning, go ahead and look at homeopathy. For whatever reason, recently a client that I'm serving almost completely with homeopathy, since he does not wish for the other therapies that I offer, and the homeopathy that I offer serves him so well. There's always going to be some nut job like that who's just
calling me a nut job.
Anyone who's into homeopathy, sorry. And
dude, I'm not.
Works really well for you.
So
you got some stuff going on. I'm telling you.
Check this out. So I was not at all into homeopathy. I couldn't care less about homeopathy. As a matter of fact, that all sounded really hokey to me. And last year I went to Red Pill, and I'm really sensitive to mosquito bites, like extremely. Like my body freaks out, right? So I got bitten a lot in Connecticut, and my whole lower legs were so swollen. It looked like I had lymphoma, literally. And so we were on our way back, and I arrived at Jofo's house, which is in Bellingham, and his wife is like, hey, I mentioned something about having a terrible allergy to mosquitoes. And she said, you know what? I have something for you. And she gave me 6 little candies, and she's like, take this, see what happens. And I took this and I stopped itching. And then I took it again a couple hours later. And you know what? Seriously, it was like night and day. And that is what sold me on. And I have them on my desk because it's mosquito season now. So
what's the name?
Well, this one is histamine. There are different histamine ones, but I didn't find the one that I actually wanted on there. I wanted the Histaminum muriaticum. But Pumon histamine seems to work as well. So whatever it is, it's working on my histamine system. And then Api malefica is the one that I take right after being bitten by whatever bug. And then like yesterday I got bitten by an ant, and it felt like somebody was poking me with like hot poker, literally. And I took some of those and some urtica urens. Both of those, boom, it went right away. And so I don't know if it works, but you know what? I'm not going to question something. I'm 47 years old. Nothing's worked for this before. And now these little candies, they work. And that's all I care about.
There we go. And I care about results, bottom line, too. So that's why I like to use homeopathy also. Though I find it mostly is like 98% of the time it's an adjunctive therapy, because there are 3 parts of health I was going to mention that, like holistic healthcare shortcuts, right? So know the 3 parts of health. You were taught 2 of them in, years ago, but it sounds like all 4 of you guys have learned all 3 of them. So the 3 parts I'm mentioning are structure. You know that there are bones and muscles and tendons and ligaments. You know that the structure is nice. You have health when your structure is in place, and you have disease when structure is out of place, which is why, getting a massage, chiropractic adjustment, etc. helps. And then there's the second part, chemistry. You know that chemistry will adjust your health. So when you have deficiencies, not enough of certain nutrients, you have health problems. That has been established for a long time. When you have toxicities, substances that were never supposed to be in your body, well, now you have new health problems from that. That's called a toxicity problem. And that's chemistry. So that third element, where you have the homeopathy lives there, you have acupuncture living there, it's the electromagnetic component. You could use a DC millivolt meter and measure the electromagnetic field on, around the human body and within, and you could see that the body has a charge around it, actually a field strength of various levels around it. Carillion photography was an attempt at taking a static measurement of that. And there have been other, I would say, not static, in motion video versions of that also available. The work of Harry Oldfield over in England. There's a lot of people who work on that kind of thing. The electromagnetic aspects of the human body are pretty profound. So homeopathy, it's a cool thing does anyone here ready to explain how homeopathy works besides me?
Please do.
I'll explain it. Okay. So you have Symptom X. So in this case, the itchiness and the red hot poker of after being mosquito bitten. Okay. That's the symptom. And then you have the medicine. In this case, let's just pick Apis. We're talking, that's like, so this is a homeopathically diluted version of the honeybee. That's what Apis is. Okay. What does that dilution mean? So that means that they made a tincture out of the stinger of that bee, likely, or maybe the whole bee itself, depending. And that's like alcohol and water and the actual bee. They made basically like a medicine directly out of that. Kind of toxic, actually, because it includes the poison of the stinger. And then they took a drop out of that and put it with, depending, 10 drops or 100 drops, depending on what the solutions. But the one you were holding, I bet that was a C on it, maybe 30C. I'm going to take a guess. Does that say 30C?
Yeah, 30CH.
It totally says 30C because I can read from here. And I can't.
You don't have to. There you go.
But you can. I can prove that I know like that boron medicine.
There you go.
Because I've dealt with a lot of that medicine.
It even clarified.
That means that they took 1 drop of the Apis mother tincture into 100 drops of water, and then they did that. Then they took another. They shook that up. They succussed it, and then they took a drop of that. They did that process 30 times. So once you get past 24 times, there's not a molecule left in it. That's like molecular level. It's going past the molecular level. It's now in purely the energetic frequency. Not a molecule left of any of that honeybee mother tincture.
Maybe that's why it works so well for me, because it doesn't have any of the poison in it.
Absolutely none of the poison, but it's the frequency, and it's there to remind the body when you get exposed to those pellets. It's reminding your body, hey, remember Symptom X? Well, please do something about it. So as long as the person has enough fortitude that they don't have they don't have too many structural problems, they don't have too many chemical problems and other different electromagnetic problems, the reminder to a healthy body, a child, an animal, like our pets, young pets, like an athlete, a strong person, or anyone who's just not too unhealthy, homeopathy is there to remind their body, hey, remember Symptom X? Please do something about it right now, in a mild, like a Post-it note kind of way, And
that's a great explanation. That's really cool. And by the way, I give this to my dog too. because she has some allergies and she itches really annoyingly at night, and so it works really great for her too.
Would that fall into that like nocebo, placebo effect arena as well? Is that the same kind of ideology, or is that different?
It would fall into that, Mike, if the person knew about taking the remedy, but it's also been tested on people who don't know that they're taking the remedy. So in that case, it is purely the energetic reminder and the imprint. The placebo effect is very important. In fact, I think all of us use it on ourselves and our clients, for sure, I would hope, because that's the natural power of the human mind to make things go in the direction you want them to go, to make the results happen that you want. And the nocebo effect is the opposite. That's of the thinking that it's not going to work is for sure going to help you make it not work. I have encountered that sometimes too.
Well, it's interesting because I had no preconceived notions about it, positive or negative, when she gave me the candies the first time. I was like, okay, well, whatever. I'm itchy, right? Like, You
didn't really study this first. You just took them. Yeah.
Isn't that what
it was
the body
like
does
over a
naturally as
breakfast
well?
table, right? Like, oh gosh, I'm so itchy. Okay, here, take this.
Yeah.
So the process you just described, how it's potentiated, right? That's the name for it?
Yes.
Isn't that what the body does also to a degree naturally? As our body also functions as a, how you would say it in English, it's a distiller. So I'm talking about urine therapy, for example. So your body is basically, if you have been poisoned, I think it's even been done like for snake bites or so on, and you would use urine therapy, your own urine basically, and re-ingest that again, that this has a similar effect on your body. Isn't that the similar process?
Urine therapy would have to be touching on the chemical, because that is not diluted. So I would be thinking, like, when I mentioned the three, structural, chemical, electromagnetic, every therapy is going to influence all the other components of health. Okay, for sure. But generally speaking, a therapy will be very much more aligned in one of them more than the other ones. So there's so much chemistry in urine that I would be putting it in that, on the triangle, I put it in the chemistry area. But it's going to affect the electromagnetics, and it's going to affect the structural, so I don't know. I like to simplify things like that. I think that it's true, though, it is diluted, but not to the point where it's diluted to the energetic level. That would be my position on that. Here's a holistic health care.
Hang on a second before you go on. Shambhavi says that providing you take no medication and the body is well hydrated, which is true. Like the electromagnetic and all that only works then. And then we also had another comment from WW, not sure who that is. They say that they're fascinated with electromagnetic fields and study as applied to treatments. Is it the EMF pattern that carries the signature beyond 24 cycles in homeopathy? And then they're asking if you're familiar with Gerald Pollack's Easy Water.
Not familiar with Gerald Pollack's or Easy Water.
Me either.
I think that's something for us to write down in our notes and look up later on. I lost what I was excited to say. I know I'm pushing close to my 10 minutes before I have to go, so I wanted to give you guys a chance to direct the conversation the way it's supposed to go.
There's no such thing.
You can put it. So in your work, how I understand it, you're going beyond just treating symptoms, because you're basically addressing and guiding the client, the friend that you're working with, to a point where he or she can understand that it's not about eliminating the symptoms, but that there's a root cause for the symptom. So a question that I have is, in my experience, people would come with a certain with a certain understanding, let's say, on the structural level, as you called it, or maybe the physical level. Okay, I've broken a bone, my head is hurting, this and that, and so they have an understanding or access, basically, a perspective from that level, but they might not see the other levels. Or as I speak with a picture, is like that picture of a wheel that I'm dealing with. So I feel that we are on a holistic journey towards liberation, towards freedom, which would be the hub of the wheel. So from a holistic health perspective, I can see the spokes of the wheel, as being the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, the mental. Those are kind of like the spokes of the wheel, and each one of those spokes actually connects in the middle, in the hub, which is the freedom. So people are on different paths of awareness on those spokes, and in my work, I tend to look at it as that, with that picture in my mind, and I try to figure out where is he or she at this moment of time, and where can they see the spoke and the way, and where can I help them to see more, or to discover like a spoke that I have not been focusing on. Is that something you can connect with, or is that, and the question that I would have would be, what kind of method or strategy do you have to bring awareness and consciousness to someone who might only see us, as a physical being, and who might be aware of that, but who might not be aware of all the other things that connect, and through that basically connect them to the root issue or the root cause of the symptoms that they're experiencing.
So I like to always mention that plurality is very important, that very rarely is it a root cause. There are multiple root causes, plural. So monopoly thinking is pernicious. So I'm trying to nip that one right in the bud right away. And you see how I keep trying to hark on that one. I harp on that one big time. I try to give hope first, that I am hearing them about what they want addressed, which is called the branches in Oriental medicine. That's the symptoms that are manifesting. And I would be finding the roots as well. I'm going to be addressing the roots and working hard to deliver them results and improvement that they can notice about the branches that they're showing up to deal with. It's the same as you're treating an orchard out there. You're going to be feeding the roots with food and getting like short-term food, long-term food, like glacier sand that eventually turns into minerals and breaks down. And then you're going to be spraying the foliage and dealing directly with nutrients right up to the foliage like that. That goes in even faster. And you're going to be dealing with any infestation issue as well. And focusing on that, and where is it and why. And as long as I'm giving them hope that like a lot of different things are being found and a lot of different things are being addressed, and I'm also giving them an idea of how long is it, like how long can they expect before they see some results. Well, I'm aiming for them to see results right after the treatment. But sometimes if the problem has been going on for decades, I need more than one treatment. So I'm asking, how much time and money do you really have to throw at this problem with my help? Knowing what it is that I cost, which is $100 an hour, and knowing how much time that you actually have in your workaday to put towards this. How many chances do I get? Do I get one chance? Do I get 5 chances? But we to make some agreement about where are we headed together on this journey. Because healthcare has no guarantees, Dennis, and I try to address that directly, that there are no guarantees with this kind of thing, because they're doing all the things to create and perpetuate their own symptoms. And I have to keep in mind, are they the kind of person who's ready to hear that statement? Or are they the kind of person who wants to live in denial of that statement? And that's a judgment call that I need to make, because I can coax them to the idea of being ready to handle that. But if they're not in the headspace to handle the emotional impact of that statement, then I've learned, in these years, to not push them away from me by insisting that they leap to the top of a cliff without me presenting a ladder. Like if the cliff is up there with a belief system of empowerment and they're down here with disempowerment, I need to help provide them with the ladder and show them the steps and coax them up and climb with them. you know. So it all depends on matching the person where they're at. That was my long-winded answer.
In
That seems
coaching
that
school,
plurality is into that again, because the more different segues, or the more, let's say, ladders or steps of the ladders you have that you can give them, that they are able to see, the better, you know, the more chances you'll have to give them something that they can identify with on their individual journey.
but not necessarily. This is what I was going to say. In coaching school, we have two differentiations. Some people are visitors and some people are clients. Some people just want to visit you and talk about their problems, and other people will actually want to engage with you in a partnership to fix their problems. The people that just want you to fix their problems on your own without having any engagement or any skin in the game, those are visitors. And so that's how you can tell, right? People who are engaged in their own self, actualization, or people who are just there to complain about it. Is that too harsh? A line?
Well, I think that in general, I try to be careful about labeling people, because I see labeling as very disabling frequently. So people are just people and they've got problems, and that makes it so that now they're like me. And that helps me see them as a person, and hopefully that will help them see me as a person. And if they want to just talk and not get anything done, well, that's their choice of the use of their money, and that's fine. As soon as they show up, I'm happy because of that, because I do this because I love doing it. But oftentimes I'm really engaged in just finding out where it is that they're at, and most especially what their goals are, and if we can just put those goals out on the table, because I'm writing notes when they're telling me their problems, then I can ask them, is this what you want? You want that pain near your scapula gone? You want that discomfort and pain near your jaw gone? That was the client here today, and he's on the same page as me, and we've been working together for many months now. So there's like a lot of opportunity, I think, in connection with people through this work that we all do.
And there's freedom, and that's really what motivates me every day. There's freedom in leading someone into self-responsibility, into showing them that they have the power, even by the choice, to visit you and to deal with you, to be led to their own self, because a master or a guide that is worth his or her salt always guides the student, or the client in that case, back to him or herself. And there's tremendous freedom in that, to see that, oh, actually it's me, I cause everything, I'm responsible for everything, for everyone who's sitting beside me in the bus, for every health condition that I have, for my own well-being, and to be able to lead people to that awareness that they, the world they're living in is a true reflection of the inner world. So the outer world they're experiencing is a true reflection of the inner world. I think that is something really motivating to me, and I really commend you on your work. And I'm looking forward to talk to you again, hopefully very soon, and to to connect with you even on other levels, and see how I can address and how I can forward my own journey towards liberation, maybe with your help.
Awesome. Wow. I'm almost out of time. I wanted to quickly mention that what I was going to say was intravenous vitamin C, intravenous EDTA as treatments for extreme neurological conditions and other healthcare problems. EDTA is well known as a chelator to pull out toxins. This is a kind of therapy I can't do because I don't have a license that would allow me to do injectables like that. I don't do intravenous therapies, obviously.
Is that something that... Sorry, yeah. You piqued my interest. I know you have to go. Is that something you could do for yourself, though? Like, would I be able to find the stuff to, like, use that treatment on myself without a doctor?
You could find oral EDTA capsules or liquid. You could find that online, and you could also, find other substances that chelate out.
You can self-inject. I've self-injected vitamin B before.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
But you have to know
so if you have access to injectable methodologies, then yeah, obviously you can learn to do that if you can get access to that. This is where, making a holistic healthcare team is what I try to help people do, so that you do have a naturopathic doctor that you're friends with and that you occasionally work with, a medical doctor that to be your advocate in case you get in medical trouble, especially in this era of biosecurity problems, you know, someone to advocate for you that you fully have bribed and have in your pocket, that you have blackmailed, that you have something on them, that you really fully control this doctor, you know. And I say that with some small sense of humor, but I hope it doesn't have to go all the way there. That, you know, you do have holistic healthcare professionals like myself who are varied in their approach of diagnostic and treatment, you know, and not singular. I don't recommend acupuncturists too often because of the narrow applications, but occasionally I do recommend chiropractors a lot to my clients, especially those who are trained in clinical kinesiology or applied kinesiology specifically. So if here's all the chiropractors, like from like about a foot wide, my hand span, and here's a tiny little section right in here called clinical kinesiologies, and here's a few more called applied kinesiologists, you know. So if you think you've been to, you know, the chiropractor that does that, you need to really know that they would be doing things that are very different. You know, they would not just be bringing you in, cracking your back, and in 10 minutes you're out of the office. That's not what I'm talking about. There's a lot of options. You know, I think one of the biggest things I could leave the viewers and listeners with, there's so many options. Oh my God, there's so many options, you know, and just think that you're a tiny little child. You're like, oh, on the edge of the ocean, and there's the great big ocean, and you're just starting. And there are guides. I'm one of them. Everyone here in this call is a guide to help you find the answers to your problems.
Nice. Thank you, Darrell.
That was a
Thanks,
beautiful
Darrell.
send-off.
Really appreciate your
Yes,
time.
man. Thank you very much, Darrell.
It was great to join you guys. And I look forward to next time.
Sounds
so
good.
I'm going to leave. You guys can wrap up and then talk.
No worries. No worries. We will. Just bye.
Same here.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Darrell.
Yeah, what he was talking about, the different chiropractors. I went to a Chinese osteopath about 1.5 years or 2 years ago, and that was amazing. It's very different. It was a chiropractic, but all he did is he would rock my body, like he would go like this, and then my body would readjust itself. Like it wouldn't be like a chiropractor would do.
And did it last, or kind of like you went back to what it was before, you know, after a few days?
It was really good. It lasted actually. And he showed me. So what was happening is when I was sitting at my desk, I was putting my feet underneath my chair like this, and I was kind of flipping them upside down and sitting like this on, like I'm having my foot upside down underneath the chair. And what happened is that started pulling on my hip after a while. Oh, and then, of course, when I get stressed out or something is going on, I'll start pressing on my feet. Like I'll press my feet down. So now my foot's upside down. I'm pressing it down. And so it pulled.
Are you stressed?
Well, not now. This was like 1.5 years ago. But I was still in Quebec back then. And so I pulled one of my hip occlusions where it attaches to my bottom of my spine. I pulled it out. And then it just kept popping out and I couldn't put it back in. And so there was this constant pain at the back, like around my tailbone, but over to one side. And yeah, I went to this osteopath. He showed me how to put it back in without, you know, and he just said, yeah, just do this 3 times every morning, every night, and this won't happen again. And I think I went to him twice because he was so great, but then I didn't go after that. Because he gave me all the tools I needed. Shambhavi loves us. She thinks that this is a great segment. She also says to Willow that she's practiced intravenous chelation and it can be done and you can self-inject. And I know that I can self-inject because when they were misdiagnosing me before I figured out that I was allergic to meat and I was constantly sick and nobody knew why, one of the things was vitamin B injections, and I found that the doctor's bedside manner was lacking, and so I asked him if I could do it myself, and he kind of laughed and handed me the little vial and said, go to the apothecary or to go to the drugstore and for like 50 cents or whatever you can get a syringe. So I did, and I was doing that for a while. It was
Nice.
better. It was better than when the doctor went I'm like, ow. It hurt for a while.
Well, in my experience, doctors or nurses who tend to give shots, there's like the really good kind who know what they're doing, they know where to give the shot, and then there's these people.
I like the
who don't
reminder about not labeling. That was good.
Yeah, because I definitely wanted to use a label. There are certain people who, when you put a syringe in their hand, they have no idea what they're doing. For example, I used to have to get
or maybe
the
they
depot
do.
shot.
Maybe
Well,
they do have an idea what they're doing. Maybe they're those 1 out of 10.
Then this lady had a vendetta against me, and I don't know what I did to her and her family, but it must have been real bad, because this lady injected my hip, like up here. You're supposed to inject it into the butt muscle, and I'm a skinny person, you can tell where the bones are and where the muscle is. She injected it like up into my hip. It left a bruise this big up my backside. And then the next time, like, I went in and I was super anxious and super nervous, and the nurse was like, okay, we're all done. I'm like, huh? I didn't even feel you put the needle in, much less inject the thing. So clearly, half of them don't get training whatsoever or don't care, and half of them are decent at their job. I don't like doctors with syringes.
And by the way, before
just like you said, one of the shortcuts was to set up, a team of physicians, of different health practitioners that you can count on. So, if there's any problem with the syringe and the needle, then that will be a great asset for you to have. And I think that is really like a super important point, that you're not lost. And then, of course, you might not have the time or the resources, or even the insight or even the insights or the information to have some of the background that those people might have. So to have like a bunch of people and to be able to, at a call or with a visit, to get, a couple of different opinions on the same issue, then that gives you freedom, because that gives you the freedom of choice. If you only have, your own view, or maybe, that of the newspaper article of that, but you can pull up easily on the internet, then, that's a certain quality there. But if you have a few people that you trust and that you have build trust and build a relationship with, and that, as he said, that are in your pocket, so to say, that can advocate for you, and that are truly looking after your well-being and your health, then I think that's a huge asset. And that's one of the things that I really can take away from, from Darrell's talk earlier.
When we continue on with our loving relationships, we should add a segment in there about loving relationships with your medical professionals, because it's not something that actually affects.
Maybe we should have a medical professional come in and talk about loving and relationships.
Well,
that's
interesting.
That's a big. Sorry.
Well, it's interesting. We mentioned Wilhelm Reich, and kind of his some of his methodology would be in that arena where a lot of people said he was molesting his patients and stuff like that. And that story, Wilhelm Reich, is certainly one in which the government basically took him, threw him in jail, burned all his books and burned all his materials and stuff. And there was a lot of information that went out the window with Wilhelm Reich. And I think a lot of people are trying to reconstruct what he was attempting to get across to other people. But I also wanted to mention, Gerald Pollack and the Easy Water. I did look that up. You can go to pollacklab.org. And it gives a little bit of description. Apparently, he has written a couple books, one, The Fourth Phase of Water, and another one called Cells, Gels, and the Engine of Life. Sounds like some interesting stuff. This is the first time I've heard it, but certainly something to check into.
Thank you very much, WW. And also, okay, hang on. I'm going to have to read you guys stuff. So Shambhavi also said that for Willow, that the appropriate chelation combination specific to you needs to be diagnosed and combined. And then the second thing I want.
Oh, don't worry. I wasn't planning on going out and buying stuff in a syringe and just testing stuff out tonight, because I am a major wimp when it comes to cutting open like my own skin. The needles, I don't even know. I don't even know if I could do that. I'm
And
so glad I don't have diabetes.
as far as I understand, you also at the same time, because that's leaching out, also minerals and trace minerals out of your body. So at the same time, you'll have to have a regimen of supplying your body with that. So you don't get any issues. So there's a balance right there, of taking out and cleansing and then putting in back the right stuff at the same time too.
Nice.
So
Nice.
I'm gonna go a little bit off topic. I wish that I had gotten a chance to talk about this when Darrell was on, because he might know more.
You
when
can
he
always
was
ask
talking-
him to come back.
Yeah, that is true. But when he was talking about like your electromagnetic field, it triggered this memory in my mind. At Red Pill, they had this. It was called the Beamer table, and I wanted to see what it was. I don't even know why. It was the only thing there that I tried out, and I got on it for like the 10 minutes. I'm not kidding. I felt like I was coming off an acid trip when I got down. Like when I got off of it, I was like, I could hear everything. Everything was just a little too much, and I went silent. I could just only absorb things. I couldn't really communicate or talk about it. I was only processing what was going on. It was a really weird experience. They project an electromagnetic field through your body, and they focus it on the areas that you have trouble with. Mine was my back, because I have hip problems, and so they put it on my lower back and then like all along my spine. I remember I was laying there in a room, echoey, full of people, and I could hear what I thought was a train going over train tracks, because it was going dun 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 dun. And I was like, are we in a train station? Is there a train connected to this building? And I realized I was actually like hearing my heart. It was external. So I was like picking up on other sounds that were in tune with my heartbeat. And it had something to do with like how the veins open up, and how like if you have two veins going into one, you're supposed to have like merging traffic where it does like this, and each side opens up, and a lot of times it just hits and it gets clogged. So this was a way of like alternating the current like from your blood flow, and I could feel and hear that happening in my brain, like in my body.
It's cool.
It was a really strange experience, but I wondered if that was what he's talking about, is like treating the electromagnetic field.
Maybe.
We'll have to ask
Yeah.
him.
I think he was talking about recognizing that is one of the, he named 3 of the elements, and the electromagnetic element was the one that was, mostly forgotten or not known by people. And he said structure was one, the chemistry was the other one, and the electromagnetic element was another one. So I don't think he was specifically talking about, machines or different, applications that can be used. But that would be a great example of addressing, that forgotten element, so to say, of our body, that
exactly.
we are
That's-
electric beings, so to say.
That's what I was trying to say, is like, I wonder if that's along the same lines of the treatment he was talking about for the electromagnetic aspect of it, because I don't think I've ever been treated for the electromagnetic aspect, other than maybe the call with Joseph Ford's wife, Catherine. Maybe that was I can't tell if that was treating the spiritual aspect or the mental aspect, or if it was actually treating an electromagnetic field, because that was also another really strange conversation and experience that I don't really have a way to explain.
Okay, and
You mentioned
she's the
you
one
mentioned-
who introduced me to the homeopathic thing. Yes, that's it.
Oh yeah.
We mentioned.
You mentioned the Beamer. I actually interviewed Rajai Kaldani, who is one of the guys that sold the Beamers, and basically probably was the guy selling it at Red Pill.
This was a
they
lady,
have since
but-
stopped the. I don't know if it's the FDA or whatever. Has basically stopped people from buying the Beamer in the United States. So Rajai has actually gone on to something else called the Healy, and it's a much more economical version, and it's like just a little bitty box thing, and I think it's got like 60,000 different patterns that kind of go to different electrical and magnetic solutions depending on how your body is reacting.
Nice.
But I did do that interview, and if you check out my leadership ethics and organization interview, you'll find that interview about the Beamer and the Healy.
What's the guy's name?
It-
How would we find it?
It's on my BitChute channel, Mike on Fire at BitChute, and the gentleman's name is Rajai, Rajai Kaldani, Kaldani.
Cool.
We have more comments from WW. Well, actually, I don't know what that means. They say, yes, fourth phase of water. I'm happy you're excited about that. I mean, I can get excited about anything. I don't really know what that means, though.
We were talking about the exclusion zone water. That's what WW introduced us to,
okay.
that concept. Come on.
And there also seems to be some fascinating connections between EMF, the work of Pollock, and that of Tesla, worth investigating.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I'm very fascinated with this electromagnetic, and I never realized that the homeopathic worked on the electromagnetic spectrum, but that totally makes sense because, yeah, that works. I'm a weird duck sometimes.
Well, I've never heard about the easy water thing, but I would imagine
No.
it's probably got something to do with those kind of things. And from what I understand, water has memory, so there's kind of a default to water and its electromagnetic properties. And
James
some of
True
the things
said,
that-
James True said that it's the salt in the water that carries the memory, which was an interesting concept.
And salt that's the minerals, the trace minerals that's in it, and I think I
Crystalline.
touched upon that like last or 2 weeks ago about the same electromagnetic thing when we were talking about food and ingesting food, putting food in your mouth, and you right away you will get a physical reaction, like whether it's a grumbling in the belly or the individuals have different individual reactions as well, and that also hints at the fact that we are electromagnetic beings, and that this is something that permeates us in homeopathy. It's like, yeah, true, like physically, like Darrell was saying, there's no molecule there, so you cannot under microscope see anything physically there, but still it carries what? It carries the vibration, it carries the information, although it has been diluted so much that you physically cannot see it or show it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think there's that experiment where they had jars of water with rice in them, and that people talk to it and said they love they love it, and then the other one they said they hated it, and the difference between those three canisters was quite significant.
And
Well, they've actually done that test before without rice, and they were just studying the molecules of the water and how they acted. The molecules themselves act differently when there are good vibes versus bad vibes. So if you're talking angry to it, the water will react to angry vibes. It'll start moving in a different pattern. And I can't remember exactly what like the pattern was. I want to say like when they were scared, it kind of like clumps together a little bit more. Like they all kind of freeze in a way, and then when everything is good, they're all like super happy and moving around.
Yeah, in fact, that reminds me, because one of the things another one was the water, the difference that these jars of water, and then they froze the water, and the crystals that formed in the ones that had the love were like these nice harmonious snowflake-like crystals, whereas the ones that was angry or hatred or some of that, it was all kind of disjointed and looked weird.
they were talking about that the other day on the James True thing, and he said there was distilled water that they used because they couldn't use non-distilled water for that experiment because it would have a memory of its own or something. And I'm not sure if I fully understand that statement, but I was like, oh, okay, I'll have to look into that. You know what I mean?
Actually, that kind of makes sense to me.
Well, and then he said that salts are the ones that carry the memory in the water, and that salt has a crystalline structure.
Well, also,
right?
If you're drinking, I tell people this all the time, if you drink nothing but distilled water and you get dehydrated and you think that you're going to drink more distilled water, you might feel worse because you're actually flushing your body out of chemicals that you need, like minerals and all the other stuff.
Distilled
I'm
water
not-
doesn't seem correct to me.
It's because it's
I don't know why.
It's had all the stuff leached, got pulled out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not so sure I believe that. I drank a lot of distilled water.
So we got lots more
for a long while.
comments. You want to read the next comments there, Miss?
Ooh.
Just 1 second. The research I think you're talking about was Masaru Emoto, the
Yeah.
Japanese guy who researched that, and who
Yes.
has been he got some how would you say that? He was discredited as and called a pseudoscientist and whatever, because it seems that in his studies he would select the water molecules that have the most, that are the most beautiful and have beautiful structures as a reaction of the positive how would you say, words or
Vibration.
vibes that but I think I agree that there's definitely something onto it, and but his name is Masaru Emoto, so that's something everybody can look up.
Yeah. Who is WW? He just used the egregores, or she? Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't have a.
Do we know
icon
you?
picture.
You're speaking
Yeah,
your
so
language.
they said, yes, water memory is being traced to EMF patterns imparted to the water and persisting through dilution. Emotions also radiate EMF patterns, may explain auras, and it may also combine to create egregores.
Yeah,
Ah, man, it's all coming together.
that makes sense. Totally makes sense.
2 cents on distilled water. It's perfectly fine to drink distilled water. It seems that most of the minerals you're getting, or you're supposed to be taking in, are actually through your food, not through your water. And rainwater, for instance, is distilled. Like I said
Is
earlier,
it?
like I was touching upon urine
Yes.
therapy. So our body is actually a distiller in itself as well. And but it's something definitely you're not gonna drop dead if you drink distilled water, even if it's
Oh,
No.
no. That's not what I was saying. I was saying there are, like, sometimes, especially, I found this out researching, MDMA, how, like, you can sweat profusely, and if you're continuously drinking water, you can overhydrate yourself. And if you overhydrate yourself
agree
with
with
drinking, if you overhydrate yourself with drinking water that does not have electrolytes, it can cause a different condition that's very similar to dehydration. It's the opposite, but it has similar symptoms. So it's not really about drinking the distilled water, it's how much electrolytes you're actually putting into your body coming from your food or other liquids.
See, WW also says distilled water isn't bad per se unless you're already nutrient deficient, but it can escalate malnutrition issues.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say about it is that I have my little truth meter, whom I trust, and we have both distilled water that I use for cooking and spring, like pure aquifer water that I use for drinking. And I don't mind using the distilled water for cooking, but for the drinking, I really prefer the live water. It feels not live to me, distilled water.
Yeah,
Like this
I would
one
agree to that
seems
too. Same
live.
here. We're doing
Well,
osmosis,
if you're
reverse
if you're
osmosis
drinking
treatment.
water is contaminated with fluoride, I would suggest drinking distilled water.
And you can
It's
simply
not.
revitalize it. It's not difficult to kind of revitalize
Yeah.
it and also to
No,
remineralize it as
a
well.
little
It's a
pinch
simple
of
thing.
salt, a little pinch of salt in there will
Good
liven
salt,
it right
yeah.
up. I use Himalayan pink salt.
Yeah.
Read the next comment, Willow.
Every time I look over, there's more.
I know. This time it's done.
Yeah, okay, so Don Clark says, a girlfriend of mine passed out from too much water in MDMA one time. I believe it's called desalination. It has something to do with the proper passage of electrical currents.
Well, that's a big shortcut to health, to
That's
holistic
so
health anyway.
cool.
Water.
I love our
Like
listeners.
to get your water right is one of the foundational things. Talking about the physical and the structural part of our being. Get the water right. That's what you need a lot. Even more than food. You can last longer without food than you can last without water. And to get water right is one of the foundational things ever. The amount of water you're drinking, the quality of water you're drinking, that's a huge shortcut right there.
And, I just want to give a shout out to our listeners because, Don Clark, WW, Tony McCarty, whoever else is listening today who's not commenting, but all our listeners.
Shambhavi was commenting.
Shambhavi was commenting. They're such great, amazing people. I mean, we're so lucky to have such awesome listeners, you know?
And you guys make this show even better, because don't get me wrong, I love all the rest of the people on this show, but we spend a lot of time together. We're meeting with each other 3 times a week for at least an hour.
For this reason.
Not the other ones. So it's really nice to be able to be on the show and be like, all right, we got some fresh meat in here. We got some new ideas. I really think.
Oh, and Mr. Lawrence Driggs joins us last second just so he could get a mention. Mwah.
What were we reading your mind on?
Yeah, he keeps waiting to comment. And then we read his mind. It's so cute.
Well, I'm so glad that Darrell came in and gave us the time that he did. I really appreciated getting a chance to watch a couple of his interviews. I watched, in preparation for this interview, I watched Chris's interview with Darrell. And, I think I learned some things today. So that's always a big plus for me.
Yes, same here. I hope our audience feels the same and sees value in.
I would love to have Darrell
in today's guest.
I would love to have Darrell on more. I think he was really great, and he added a lot of value. And what a good idea! Thank you, Deirdre.
Oh, I was like, did Deirdre comment? I was like looking for a comment because I had something ready to say, and you threw me for a loop. I was gonna comment towards Lawrence and be like, look, see. You're not the only person that Agnieszka's reading minds tonight, because I was going to say the same thing. Like, I would love to have him back on our show. There is so much under the surface that we didn't even touch on. And it was so hard to stay on the surface, but I knew we needed to do it so that we could get this show literally on the road.
Yes, I agree with you too. Well, let's look forward to next week. We have a plan for Monday, and Wednesday is going to be a secret revealed on Monday. Right. So Monday we have another segment of our new Monday sessions, which are on the
artistry of loving relationships.
Yes, excited about that again.
And actually, we know who's going to be on that show if we wanted to announce.
Tell us.
Who?
I've never said his name out loud in person, so I don't know if it's Luis or Luis. So I apologize if I get it wrong, but I believe it is Luis Fernando Mises.
Okay. I believe it's Luis, yeah.
Okay, I was hoping I said that right. I hate saying people's names for the first time, and I'm like...
Well, yes, and so that will be really amazing.
Oh. Yeah, Luis has got a lot of interesting ideas and a lot of interesting opinions. So I'm looking forward to it.
We like all of that. And I really like WW. I hope whoever that is will come back, because all these comments are amazing. And, maybe we should have you on the show as a guest. Have you considered that?
WW. We are here every Monday and Wednesday at 5:35 Eastern PM.
It's probably somebody from our class,
Well, apparently they're being shy. They keep commenting, but they won't tell us their name.
Right. That's true. And now the time has run out for telling us their name, because the show is almost to an end. We've announced the Monday show.
Monday, yes.
Yes.
Let's hear from you again on Monday. Give us feedback. Right. It's very heartwarming, and it motivates us even more to do better every time, to raise excellence in our own and in your lives. And thank you so much.
Awesome.
We're grateful.
Have to thank our last commenter. They just jumped in. Minnie, Cappy, Donnie. We're really glad that you found our show too.
Yeah, we're really glad you found our show, and listen to some other episodes, and we'll be back on Monday with a really cool episode with Luis. What was the last name?
Fernando Mises. It's all, he has it all, so I'm just going to say that that's his whole name.
Nice. Thank you, everyone. Oh, yes, I'm supposed to play the outro. Oh, geez. Okay. Don't laugh at me. Okay, say goodbye.
We're
say
laughing
goodbye.